Good morning from Ormond Beach, Florida. The sun rose, I guess, 4 minutes ago here officially. It'll be still a little while until it comes over the trees and the buildings, etc., that you can see it. I think it's maybe, 15-20 minute distinction between the two. I did not put a header up there. I wanted to get this up as soon as possible. Obviously, I cheat a lot with the actual sunrise, but when I'm really close to the sunrise, I try to make it, so I don't have to be cute, put the sunrise time in Alaska, whatever. I will put the header on right when I'm done this. Trust me, this is going to be worth your time. I just wanted to save the 3 or 4 minutes and get that much closer to the actual sunrise, and I will add all that stuff after the video is done. And if you watch this later, you won't even know what I'm talking about right now. Look, with these things, the important thing to me is that I'm committed to doing 3 of these a day: a sunrise, midday, and sunset report. Maybe I'll do even more soon, but 6 days a week. I try to get you at least something. And I try to really think about the audience, what is most worthwhile, not what will make me look the best by having original thoughts or going well beyond, or sometimes just basically reading things verbatim. I usually put a few comments in there, and you can tell by the change in the tone of my voice what is from me and what is from the actual author. But look, it's not like I'm trying to show that I'm enlightening you personally, or that I'm descending from the heavens to share with you as opposed to someone else's wisdom, and I'm clearly not descending from the heavens or anything like that. I think a lot of people do have that attitude when they make videos like this. I'm not trying to. I'm just really seeing myself more as a conduit, as a librarian, as a link to really good information that you might not otherwise get. Obviously, you could just read this stuff when I put the link up there, but some of you are going to want to see me for whatever reason. Okay, maybe you like having me with your morning coffee. Maybe you don't like me and you want to make fun of me. That's fine too. The information will still somewhat get to you. It's sort of like the way normalizing the gay agenda on TV over many years, decades. People might not like it, but they got used to it. Okay, that's a really bad analogy by me. Not because it's politically incorrect, but it probably takes a little more thought for people who may not have had their coffee yet. But I imagine most of you are watching because you do like me, rather than I'm normalizing you to the information I'm conveying, even if you don't like me. Whatever, I don't know if that even made sense. And now I'm crossing the line into being too cute. If you want to see how smart I am, I suggest Googling Adam Taxon, Jeopardy, Game 1, Game 2, or Game 3. Not necessarily Game 4, that didn't go so well. That will maybe show you how smart I am, even though that was 16, 17 years ago at this point, and it really doesn't show how smart you are, just how much time you have wasted absorbing trivial information in the past. With that in mind, that's a long disclaimer here. I came across something when I woke up about an hour ago that was sent to me by Deborah Pernice Kneffel. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correct. Kneffel. I've met her out in Orange County, California at one point. I don't know. Deborah, feel free to correct me. You and I know each other, so you can correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Maybe it's Kneffel, but I just happened to read this when I was in the process of waking up, and I said, wow, yeah, I agree with that one. And I saw it at townhall.com, which is kind of Republican establishment. I'm surprised it was even printed there to some extent, by a guy named Kurt Schlichter. I've heard his name thrown around, as someone who followed a lot of sports, wasted a lot of time with that in my youth, still do to a minimal extent. I always thought of Kurt Schilling and the notorious Art Schlichter at the same time when I hear his name. But he seems like a good writer, and I agree with him. So I am just going to read you what he said. I couldn't find the comments section on the phone. Maybe it's there if I look on the actual computer, and there are good comments. So I have not mined the comments. I'm basically going to read you this verbatim, probably missing a lot of words and getting the intonation wrong here and there. If you find someone else online who's doing a better job of reading it, by all means, go to them. But here is what he writes in his piece yesterday called "This is a Coup Against Our Right to Govern Ourselves." Not original thought here. This is just me talking. And it's nice to see Jade Starling on here. I see she's watching this, a liberal. I appreciate when someone who doesn't necessarily have my views watches it, and I love her work. And because Jade Starling, who is the lead singer of Pretty Poison, is watching, I will mention this. This is a distraction. Look, if someone famous is watching, I'm going to go to them first. I'm sorry to make you wait. I listen pretty regularly on weekends. They do on Sirius 80s XM a 80s on 8 countdown from that week in whatever year in the 80s. Now, obviously, Pretty Poison had a pretty big hit with Catch Me I'm Falling. I didn't know there was another group that had a song, or maybe I did recall this, or I remembered it as being Billy Idol and maybe a different title, called Catch Me I'm Falling. And it was real life from Australia. Apparently, it only peaked at number 40. They had a Catch Me I'm Falling song because it was talked about. Okay, that's it. But I didn't know there was or at least I didn't remember that there was another group besides Pretty Poison that had a Catch Me I'm Falling song. Welcome, Jade Starling. I want to talk to you about some music-related some stuff in a little more formal setting sometime. I will have my producer from Backlash call you because I always love talking to you. She's done some great tributes that I've recorded with her. Unfortunately, at the passing of a few people, she did them for Donna Summer, Glenn Frey, and who's the other one? David Bowie, both David Bowie and Glenn Frey just a year ago. Okay, with that in mind, here is what Kurt Schlichter wrote. Thank you for watching, Jade in particular. The blizzard of lies and distraction blowing through Washington is not just any routine stuff storm, but a calculated attempt to bring down a president, our president, not the establishment's president. And more than that, it's an attempt to ensure that we never again have the ability to disrupt the bipartisan DC cabal's permanent supremacy by inserting a chief executive who refuses to kiss their collective reed. I didn't know the word reed could be used as a synonym for ass, but R-E-I-D. I hope that's not a reference to Andy Reid, because I like him. This is a coup against us. It's a coordinated campaign by liberals and their allies in the bureaucracy and media to once and for all ensure their perpetual rule over us. We need to fight it here and now so we don't have to fight it down at the bottom of this slippery slope. And he has a link to his book there. It's brazen, it's bold, it's insulting to our intelligence. They aren't even trying to hide their lies anymore. Truth is irrelevant. This is a choreographed dance routine and everyone has his moves. Call it Breakin' 2 Electric Leakaroo. Okay. Except instead of trying to save the community center, they're trying to save their power and prestige. Well, by the way, I guess that was the plot of Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. I don't know what it was for Breakin', though I do know that song, speaking of 80s music, by Ollie and Jerry. Not bad, by the way. To buy the media narrative on this latest Russian nonsense, you must believe, 1, that whatever was revealed was super secret, though we don't know exactly what it was. When in doubt, assume it's on par with the nuclear codes. 2, that there was no good reason to share this info with Russia, like coordinating our fight against our joint enemy or to prevent another Russian airliner massacre. Because why would we want another power fighting ISIS or civilians not to be blown out of the sky? Got to throw a little bit of a flag with that one. It's a little more complicated than that, and they don't have a right to share all Israeli intelligence. This was the Israelis doing the good work here. And you know what? Not every country that pisses on Israel all the time has a right to all the hard work and brilliant effort the Israelis make. I'm sorry. That's my view. Hey, you can say I'm just a biased Jew. I am. But no, it's not that simple. Remember what happened to Jonathan Pollard, if you want to be so generous in giving away intelligence. Israel, not the U.S., gathered. And President Trump, you're my man, but I'm not happy with you about some of the things related to Israel lately. Shape up. Remember Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. Okay, back to what he wrote. 3, that LTG McMaster, who literally wrote the book on soldiers standing up to misbehaving civilian leaders, I didn't know that, there's a link there, and displayed immense personal courage in battle, turned chicken and sat there silently as Trump monologued about this unknown mystery info of doomsday level import. Tana Me writes, by the way, fantastic article, Adam. Well, then I'm flattered if you already read it that you're still watching me, because as I mentioned before, there's not a whole lot of substantive information that you're going to get from me in this particular Sunrise report that isn't already in the, well, not really article, essay. Okay, 4, that LTG McMaster lied on camera twice, and that Secretary of State Tillerson lied too. These are the things, not that he believes, but that you would have to believe that Trump has done something really scandalous here. 5, that random anonymous sources in an intelligence community that hates Trump with a burning passion must be believed without question, though we don't know their identities or their motives. 6, that these anonymous randos must be believed, even though they were not actually in the room to, actually hear what happened. The traditional bar on hearsay is apparently now just a bourgeois conceit. 7, that when the Washington Post and the rest of the media publishes classified stuff, remember the heroes of the Pentagon Papers, even though, wasn't that New York Times? When that when the Washington Post and the rest of the media publishes classified stuff, including intelligence provided by allies, leaked by anyone not named Donald Trump, it's awesome. 8, that the Washington Post and the rest of the media, which has been wrong over and over again in their reporting, are not wrong again. 9, that the Washington Post and the rest of the media are objective and have no anti-Trump bias, even though they are literally cheering, and they're talking about the cheer in the Washington Post office, the hits on the president. 10, that there are unicorns. He continues. The latest pseudo-scandal is that Trump doesn't think Mike Flynn did anything wrong and told James Comey so back in February. See, I get the intonation wrong plenty of the time. So basically, Trump expressed the same view he had of the whole Flynn nonsense to Comey as he has expressed to every interviewer. Comey did nothing and said nothing, even when testifying in Congress, for nearly 3 months because it was nothing. The Russian snipe hunt continued through unabated. That offhand comment was a pretty poor attempt at obstruction of justice since it didn't obstruct anything. To the limited extent, these Russian witch hunts can be accused with justice at all. So the Menschian thinkers, I don't even know what that means. M-E-N-S-C-H-I-A-N. I know the Jewish word mensch is Yiddish. It means man, but it means a good man, a gentleman. So maybe he means, so the gentlemanly thinker, he's not Jewish, so the gentlemanly thinker who usually scream treason are now screaming obstruction of justice. It's adorable when they learn new terms and try to use them correctly. It's kind of ironic that he would throw that in a paragraph where he uses mensch in kind of a weird way, and try to use them correctly. They're so proud of themselves and their vocabulary building that you almost feel bad having to point out that they sound like idiots. Okay, if I were Kurt Schlichter's editor, I would have changed things, but the point is, he's making great points in this piece, and it's worth your attention, even though I would have corrected a few things. It is nice, though, to have liberals finally come out against the abuse of executive power, misuse of classified material, and Russians. Welcome to the party, except we know you're full of Schumer. It's all lies, and they know it, and we know it. Normal people just shake their heads and wonder why Washington is so consumed with political nonsense instead of solving problems. But then, Washington does not produce solutions. It produces only political nonsense. This is a concentrated, coordinated effort by elite insiders to take down not this president, Trump's not the point here, but to take down us, the normal American they seek to rule. And believe me, not that I'm bragging about it, as I always say, I've spent a lot of time in these Ivy League circles. I know what the mentality is, and it's especially bad with people who don't come from the elite, people who come from public school modest backgrounds, and they get the thinking that they're better than you. And so it's even worse in a lot of cases than if you were just, your great-grandfather went to Yale, your grandfather went to Yale, your father went to Yale. It's not all about you. Okay. This is a concentrated, coordinated effort by elite insiders to take down not this president, Trump's not the point here, but to take down us, the normal American they seek to rule. And I did not repeat that accidentally. I'll sometimes lose my place and repeat things accidentally. In that case, it's on purpose. Someone came to Washington who wasn't part of the club, and that's intolerable. So they are desperate to expel him, and by extension, us. And I worry about President Trump that he's still very influenced by wanting to be part of the so-called cool crowd. It doesn't matter how much he's made, doesn't matter what he's accomplished, it doesn't matter how pretty his 3 wives are, he still wants to be in the cool crowd. And that worries me a little bit. He should have said, in my opinion, F you, I don't want to be part of you. And I think I've developed in recent years that I'm nowhere near as successful as Trump, not even close, basically the opposite. But I don't care. It may be because I spend a lot of time with Judaism observing Jews, and the word Hebrew means on the other side. I don't care what certain types of people think, which is the ruling elite, the Ivy League crowd, the wannabe cool crowd within the Ivy League crowd. All of that, it doesn't matter to me. I care about the people I actually spend time with, and I choose who I spend time with very carefully, by the way. And it's generally the same. Lately, I've been in the same place, basically. I haven't left Northeast Florida for close to a month now. And that's perfectly fine with me, especially when the water in the ocean is warm. Back to where Kurt Schlichter was talking. Every day will be a crisis. Every action he takes will be the worst thing that has ever happened, and every step toward keeping his promises, a crime. Repeal Obamacare? That's sentencing millions to death. Talk to Russians? It's treason. Telling Comey he wishes this nonsense would stop? Obstruction of justice, even though nothing was obstructed. Good writing there by Kurt Schlichter. He continues. Now, this campaign isn't aimed at us, normal people, people who don't live in D.C. or NYC or L.A. Just tune it out. After all these years, and with the help of the web, we normals know the game. We're woke. Love that word. As the dorky leftists say, good time for me to put in a little pitch here. Get woke. W-O-U-K, woke. Herman Woke turns 102 on May 27th, I believe. A little later than that on the Jewish calendar, which probably matters a little more to him. Read his books. I'm going to be talking about them over the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks or so, maybe as long as he's still alive, which could be another 18 years. We look at it in Judaism, a really righteous man lives to 120. I wouldn't bet on that. I would recommend, if you're a woman, especially if you grew up a beautiful woman, Marjorie Morningstar. If you're an 11-year-old boy, read City Boy. Talk to me, just message me privately if you want ideas. But let's honor Herman Woke in particular, as we are almost in the week before his 102nd birthday, at least on the secular calendar. So get woke, W-O-U-K. Back to what Kurt Schlichter wrote. The target of this constant barrage is the soft and the stupid, the smug and the sanctimonious. I know way too many people like that. The wusses and the surrender flunkies. Oh, I love who he calls out here. That's why you get the girlish-handed likes. Interesting he's writing about hands in a pro-Trump piece. That's why you get the girlish-handed likes of David Brooks writing dainty columns, for the New York Times, by the way, that give Trump such a pinch. And by the way, David Brooks is the so-called Republican who wrote, it wasn't bad, it was a little repetitive, Bobos in Paradise, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. That brought him a lot of attention, and he's the guy who was really titillated by the crease in Obama's pant leg and the way the pants were ironed. I'm not making that up, and he's a Republican. Another Jewish liberal he brings up, another secular liberal of Jewish descent. That's why David Frum, whose last name ironically means, first name means King of the Jews, as with David Brooks. Frum means an observantly Jewish person. As far as I know, he's a non-observant rhino, about the worst of them. That's why David Frum starts using words like courage to impugn actual men who have done actual man things, like LTG McMaster. That's why Kasich, who by the way is the son of a mailman, could you ever believe that a mailman would be so prominent? The son of a mailman? Imagine that in America, because no one's ever come from humbler circumstances than that. That's why Kasich, is it Kasich or Kasich? I haven't had a coffee yet. Kasich? I can't even remember. I really need a coffee. That's why he spews his bilious funk of sanctimony and submission, among other funks. I like this. I like the term he's about to use in about 7 words. It's all to appeal to the Fredo-cons, the soft-headed rhinos who are smart, not dumb like everyone says, who just want something for themselves, attention, approval, and media pats on their pointy little heads. Let's not forget, though, that Fredo was very sickly as a child. I think that was in Godfather 3, or was that Godfather 2? Godfather 3 is pretty worthless, but there's a scene, no, maybe it was Godfather 2, when they show Fredo as a sickly baby. And I don't know if that's an excuse for all the rhinos I'm familiar with. Probably not John McCain or Lindsey Graham, though Lindsey Graham's been behaving himself the last few days, or maybe he's just distracting us or doing the rhino version of Tequila. Okay, continuing on. So these fussy ninnies, fresh from having some V-capped crone, I don't know what that means, screeching at them that they will vote to take away her right to have taxpayers fork cash over to kill the baby no man will ever give her. Great point, that. Oh, it cracks me up. I'm 45 years old now. People I grew up with who, you know, hey, I haven't made the actuarial odds great, but I could still have a descendants, you know. It's different for males and females. Women in their mid-40s who are so into abortion rights, who are unmarried, who don't have any children. I mean, there's an irony in that should be so obvious when women over a certain age who, you know, will never have kids, they're talking about abortion rights. That's another discussion for another time. Fork cash over to give the baby no man will ever give her. Wander outside into a wall of mics and cameras and pause. Then they talk, and when what they say trashes Trump sufficiently, the smiles from the press come, and the nods, and then the faux respect. Now, they are no longer mean old Rethuglicans, but dauntless heroes, at least in Georgetown, because they are willing to dance and caper to the tune of the establishment. This means you above all, John McVeigh. The tsunami of baloney isn't aimed at us, it's aimed at them, the Republicans, who are foolish enough to believe their new friends when they whisper words like honor and patriotism. Some of the marks are real patriots who fall prey to these liars when they couch their bogus narrative in national defense terms. McCain, but the majority of the marks are just morons. McCain. When targeting the dummies, the goal is simple. Draw off enough weak, attention-addicted rhinos. That means Ben Sass, who, by the way, went to college with me. I think he was a year or two behind me, in the same upperclassman house I have, and he's starting to get on my nerves. I didn't know him in college, by the way. Draw off enough weak, attention-addicted rhinos to make it impossible for the president to govern. Then, hopefully, us normals will shrug and slink away, having relearned our place. After all, we're deplorable. 2 more paragraphs. And when the liberal establishment retakes power and the mavericks and goody-goodies get mavericks. We know who he's talking about there. It should be in quotes. Maverick John McCain, as they said, like non-ironically, all those years on mainstream media outlets. And the mavericks and goody-goodies get tossed aside. The bureaucracy, media, and the Democrats will conspire to ensure that no one can ever take their power from them again. But they haven't considered the consequences. We'll object. Will we? I don't know. Final paragraph. So we have to fight against this cable network coup, because if we don't fight now, we all may end up fighting later. And he puts a link there. I don't want to say I necessarily earned a coffee, but it would be good for the benefit of all if I actually had a coffee. Though the reality is, in recent weeks and months, I started off, whenever I can, having hot water and lemon to start the day. There are Google videos about why that's a good idea. So maybe, in closing, you want to check out Google videos about why it's best to start off your day with hot water and lemon, unless you're trying to gain weight rather than lose weight, in which case it might not be such a good idea. Oops, I forgot to include this. It'll be a nice day, maybe a little humid though.